Oh yeah. So
What are we going to call this? Episode 4. Let's go with 4.
4-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Because three is technically out.
Yeah.
It's just not on YouTube. But we can backdate 3
Right.
and put it back in its spot.
I like it.
Once Park stopped being a bad omen for us.
Hit Fire Park. Poor guy. Look, he's the most unlucky human I think I know.
I know.
He's been blown up like 2,000 times. Everything always works.
Horrible migraines. Needs a knee replacement.
Poor guy.
Here he is. We've already done his episode and we're still talking about him.
Because he's that bad. Oh, dude, check this out.
Talk to me.
One of your former customers. You remember Michaela? Shout out
Yeah.
Michaela. She texted me this morning. She's in Phoenix. And she's doing some what do you call it? Travel nursing.
Yep.
And they're going from Phoenix to Tacoma. And they were asking me about, where to go.
And we're
in
not
their route.
We're not to go.
Right. And I told them Coeur d'Alene, and I sent her the link to our very first one. She said, okay, I'm going to check you two idiots out.
We're now up to 22 subscribers after
Yes.
Michaela and Nikki subscribed.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So look, Dos Equis, huh, Dave?
Yes, we're sponsored by Dos Equis today. They reached out and wanted to be a part of the program.
Yeah, everyone's reaching out now that we're starting to. That reminds me. Oh, so you do a little squirt of lime juice?
Yeah.
Said fuck the real limes.
Well, for the studio, I felt like it'd just be easier.
Yeah, I mean, this place is like pretty prim and proper. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't need or we don't need knives in our hands at this point.
That's
more so.
More importantly.
Also, so we're going Dos Equis. Thank you. Shout out Dos Equis.
Dos Equis.
Yeah.
You guys rock.
Yeah, and so also, I knew it wouldn't take long, and I don't know to call it fan mail or hate mail, but the inbox is filling up. Torpedo K9. No, wait, not Torpedo K9. K9 Brew Crew at gmail.com.
Yep.
It's been filling up, Dave.
Dude, it's crazy.
We've had some requests. We've had some comments.
Random comments from random people.
Yeah, a little fan mail.
Fan/hate.
Yeah, got some fanboying going on.
I guess that's when you know you made it.
You made it, yeah. And I think they're requesting us to take a technological class or to figure out how to get these things out faster.
Because we're idiots and don't know anything about technology.
Yeah. Knuckle draggers. So be sure to email us if you have specific requests. What's up, man? What do you want to talk about today?
I was thinking, let's talk about tracking.
All right.
So,
Do that.
most of the world doesn't understand what these dogs do and how they do it.
Yep.
Not that we're experts, but we've done it for a long time and had lots of success. So I feel like we're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like I want other trainers or handlers to reach out and expand on our knowledge.
Sure.
You agree?
I agree.
I mean, we'll take learning from any direction.
And it's a funny topic because there's literally 100 different ways to do it.
Right.
And if you're depending on what you're tracking for, and whether it's a law enforcement or whether it's search and rescue, and then you got to talk about scent discriminating, which dogs can and can't do it. Actually, they all can, but up until a degree. When you get to the bloodhound, you're talking about the olfactory nose. This. If you folded it out on like a wall, it'd be like a chalkboard opposed to a postage stamp of a German Shepherd. Is the way I was described by the scientist who taught me about it. But there's so many. I've had 3. I shouldn't say back to back school, but the last 3 schools I taught, there was 3 people, 1 person, 2 people. So I don't know, 6 people back to back. And I taught them to teach their dog tracking a different way. All 6.
Well, you know,
So it's dog dependent.
you got to take what the dog gives you, right?
Including my own. So that's technically 7 different ways.
Right. So if the dog, you could be teaching a school and have 6 dogs in there and teach each dog differently.
Yeah.
Based on what their
The last school was 3, and we definitely all 3 were a different route. You know, we did one was all. I shouldn't say all. You know, I throw everything at them really, but one was a hard surface tracking, hydration bottle, hot dog dropped. One, my personal dog, we did scent boxes and made them track out of the box for food,
right.
Track to a bowl. And then the other one was agitation tracking using the agitation and the organ, the Jacobson gland, and essentially pissing the dog off, running off, having sweaty shirts dragging on the ground, things like that. Now it's dependent upon the drive for the dog to want to track.
Right.
Is the downside, I would say, in law enforcement, because we talked about this before. Like if I say, hey, I'm hosting a school and it's starting on March 1st.
Right.
Well, come June 1st, you better have dogs done. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't get the luxury of going on and doing it for 4 or 5, 6 months for whatever reason. We have a 12-week get them in, get them out. So I got to make them track in any form or fashion.
Right.
And one of those was kind of like that, where it had failed 2 schools previously, and no one could get it to track.
Right.
Allegedly, and now it's one of the best tracking dogs you ever see. Right. So.
So basically, that dog, I guess, hadn't come into his own until later, kind of like a late bloomer, puberty-wise type thing.
Yeah, that or just the techniques, that wasn't clicking. The reward at the end didn't matter, or it's just like my dog. You got to think if we're testing a dog, we've gone and tested dogs, and we'll go and scuff a track. Mm-hmm. Go scuff some grass and see if the dog has any natural desire to want to investigate it.
Right.
Those that don't really doesn't mean that much because they've never been taught this is rewarding. Right. So crush vegetation until you teach them that that's a reward there.
Right.
Right. Like what I did with the scent box and the square out and the food and tracking out of it. There is no reward there because dogs don't follow human scent in the real world to eat. You know what I mean? The whole they're a wolf. Well, they've been so domesticated over the last thousands of years. I still believe that for a lot of parts, but they're not going to follow something out of curiosity if they don't get anything in reward at the end. Right. So probably that dog. I don't know. I wasn't there for the first 2 schools of it, but I'm assuming probably scuffing and dropping a hot dog or something like that. So the dog was going out of necessity. Or really following food. Right. He was food hunting, not human hunting, if I had to guess. But I wasn't there for his previous schools. But I do know he's a tracking motherfucker now.
That's awesome. Look, for the fans out there, let's explain what we mean by tracking, right? Because in law enforcement, what is tracking? Tracking is following a scent.
Right.
An odor, following a human being, basically hunting a human being, so that we can apprehend them for the crime that they committed or allegedly committed. Versus trailing is in the bloodhound world. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And we probably should get a bloodhound handler on here at some point. Mm-hmm. We can talk about the difference between trailing and tracking. Personally, I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's all following odor.
It's following odor.
It's all following odor, yeah.
Right.
Essentially, bloodhounds obviously don't care about the ground disturbance, right? So they're following the wind-borne scent of the human. Yeah, I don't know.
They probably are following the ground disturbance. It's the total package, and I've had this argument before.
Yeah, well, you got to think, if you're doing it and they're finding success there,
right?
And every time this wind-borne scent of the DNA of the skin cells of a human, this is also there.
Right.
Of course, they're going to pay attention to it. It goes back to what I said on the last episode about the Kong.
Right.
Right. Like they make these dogs crazy for a Kong, and then you go and train them for something, You know, I guarantee you these dogs would certify and Kong. You know what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely. So, to me, and I've had this argument over and over and over, that, you know, when I first got into canine, they told us that, well, they're trained on ground disturbance. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the ways that we initiate them, right? And so let's start with back when I first started, how we did it.
Mm-hmm. Give it to me.
We would scuff a triangle.
Okay.
Just scuff it, right? And we'd put a piece of hot dog on each corner of that triangle, and we would down them and bring them up to the triangle. We would bring them up to the triangle and down them, and then we would let them sniff, and they would grab the hot dogs. All right, good. And we would track, and we would kind of guide them along. We would scuff a straight line, let's say 20 yards.
Okay.
And about every 3 to 5 feet, we would put a piece of hot dog down, right? So it would get their interest. All right, hot dogs right here in this triangle. And they would follow the super scuffed up grass or whatever, because we would do different what do you
surfaces?
Different surfaces, right? You know, grass, dirt. Eventually, we would get to hard pavement,
right?
You know,
right.
So we would start them off on the grass, super scuffed up, and they would say that's the ground disturbance.
Okay.
Right, and they would hot dog about every 3 to 5 feet, and normally after like the first 3 to 5 tracks that we do that. At the end, we would have their toy, you know, whatever their toy was, a ball or Kong or whatever, and we would praise them after they found it. So they would eventually, after the first 3 to 5 tracks, they would start skipping the hot dogs along the scuffed trail. And then they would go straight to their toy, right? And one of the things that you tell me, I always thought that we should probably give them a reward of an apprehension.
Yeah.
More towards the beginning of their training. When I first started,
I'm sure their perception was that the eyes come up, the nose comes up. Now the dog's head.
They're looking for a man.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. You know, so, but something always stuck with me. I was like, man, why are we asking these dogs to track? We're not asking them to track to find a toy.
Right.
We're looking for them to find a man.
Right.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
So nowadays, that explains how we used to do it. Mm-hmm. How do you do it now?
I still, it's still dog dependent.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of the last 4 dogs.
Okay.
Because all 4 were different. Right. So
you got the bottle opener?
Yeah.
Grab it.
The last 4, so I'll start in chronological order. So let's say, hydration, so essentially a pump sprayer that you would use for like Roundup, spraying weeds, right? Put a couple of gallons of distilled water in it, not tap water, but no minerals, no nothing. And then have whoever's laying the track, their socks from like the previous day.
Yes.
Right? And some hot dogs cut up. And start on hard surface, which is probably still probably the fastest and best method currently. I think. But so start off short track and somewhere where it can't be super hot where it evaporates, and it's not so much for dogs don't see the spray at all.
Right.
And I don't really care if the handler does at first because they're new people anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But essentially, they start a spray in a parking lot. We go somewhere super busy, so death by immersion essentially, right? So I go straight to hard surface, straight to distractions, Walmart parking lot.
Love it.
Right. So don't ever follow like a parking spot line. I don't follow cracks in the ground. Little shit like that actually matters. But spray the track, walk directly on the track. Track layer lays pieces of hot dogs along it, right?
Okay.
And then probably at first, I'm a real big food fan for the first month or two of school for teaching behaviors. So at the end would be a little more food, not a toy yet. So the dog would come out, and I give them nothing, no sweep of the hand, no track signal, nothing, and let them naturally put their nose down there. They're going to smell hot dog as well. And just like you said, they're going to go along. The difference is they're going along and they're eating a hot dog. They're staying in odor. But as they're eating it, their tongue is hitting the water, right? So they're ingesting, it's going through the Jacobson gland, so they can actually smell through their mouth, which most people don't know.
Explain the Jacobson gland.
Right. So it's again, nothing I invented, right? Some guys came over from Holland and showed it to us at a seminar like 10 years ago. And essentially, there's a gland in the mouth that I wrote an article on. It's been fucking 15 years ago now, so I can't forgive me. But essentially, they can adjust when dogs tongue, for example, like let's say I let a dog out in the yard and you can see them like licking where another dog pees. It's called tonguing. What they're doing is actually licking that, and they're sticking their tongue to the roof of their mouth and absorbing it through this gland that's going up into their mouth, right? So they're actually using their mouth to smell, not their nose.
Okay.
In layman's terms.
Okay.
Right. And by doing that, it makes them much easier to scent discriminate later on. That's where the agitation tracking comes in, right? So new dog, day one, short, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 feet, not very long.
Right.
Heavy spray, maybe 4 inches wide. Hot dogs along it. They follow along, and they're getting rewarded. Big reward at the end because there's a pile of chopped up hot dog. And as they get on it, this is also important. It comes at the end. I slowly pull them away from it. I don't jerk them. I don't take them backwards, but I continue past it, making them want more. So you can
sort of trying to get back to it.
Right. So you could probably imagine the next track is a little longer, less hot dog, a little smaller, right? So then week 2, 3, 4, next thing you know, there's no pump spray at all, right? There's no food at all. There's nothing at the end at all but a person.
Right.
Which I'm a big fan of having a human at the end always. It's kind of hard. Every now and then we get lazy in training and put a toy there.
Right.
The last thing you want is a human with the toy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you're gonna do it, then it needs to be. And I don't mind a give up, because that's realistic. Keep training like real world, but at least prone the person out, simulate cuffing something. Like don't just walk up to them. But you don't want a bad guy throwing your dog a Kong or toys, obviously. So that's the one method. Again, as you get away from the sprayer altogether, you get away from the hot dog altogether, and now they're just following the combination of human odor and ground disturbance. And the best thing about that is they teach them at day one, I can track on hard surfaces.
Right.
And by the time you get to any other surface, it's pretty easy.
It's easy.
I mean,
super easy. So starting them off on the hard surface, how long... Do they start skipping the hot dogs pretty quick on the hard surface?
Probably by track 2 or 3. Hell, so a lot of them track 1, they're skipping the hot dogs. Right.
I love it.
And you don't. I wouldn't say you don't need them. You do, because I want them to actually lick the ground and ingest through their mouth through the Jacobson organ. Well, then, so let's say they're now passing all that. They're no longer tonguing the ground anymore. You no longer need it. They're following odor. Well, that's where the agitation tracking comes in, right? Okay. So we get out with like a towel or a T-shirt.
Explain agitation.
Right. So same thing. Let's say I'm laying the track.
Okay.
You get out and have a human wearing zero equipment, nothing that resembles a police officer clothing, right? You want to, again, be realistic and civilly agitate the dog, right?
Okay. So that means... let's explain civil agitation, because we got a lot of people down here. Some millions of us, of our fans, they don't necessarily understand the lingo.
Right. So essentially, we're calling upon aggression. Right. We're trying to put the dog into fight drive,
pissing the dog off.
Yeah. Yep. So you're going to agitate him,
piss him off.
Right. Piss him off. Slap like a towel at him, whatever, and then it's got to be a shirt or a towel that you've been wearing, right? Contains your odor, like your track layer. All right, get them to bite it, even rip at it, maybe.
Okay.
Throw it on the.
Make that Jacobson gland.
Yep. And then throw it on the ground. Take off running. Right. Boom. Dog actually sees you running and leaving. Then I put the dog up.
Oh, yeah.
Again, right. So pull them away. Build that frustration. So the guy takes off to wherever. You run a mile, go in between lows. Doesn't really matter at this point.
So in the beginning, is the suspect actually running? The decoy actually running, or is he walking?
I get them to run it first. Like everything.
Make it hard.
Yeah, we slowly make things harder and harder. And then you, obviously, at some point, you'll not even have to agitate, just walk away. But or just bring him to a scene. There's already whatever your article is going to use. So, but let's say we've agitated, we've taken off running, dog gets put up for a minute or two or three, just long enough for the guy to get out of sight. And now, however long the track is, doesn't really matter, and weather and all that. At this point, we've already gotten past distractions and times or whatever. So let's say the dog's in the car for 2-3 minutes, guy runs off. I mean, you can get a half a mile. Some cops get 2-3 minutes. You run wherever and hide. Get the dog out, bring him to the item, T-shirt, whatever, have him mouth it, bite it. Right. He ingests that odor into the Jacobson. You now have
it just lights up everything.
Scent discriminating dog. Right. Man. And we've done this with much success where we've had people like, again, Walmart parking lot, and our dogs are going in between cars, right past people, into the grocery section. We do some crazy shit. Right. We've been kicked out of a lot of Walmarts. And had a guy hiding in like the plant section, so into the store, and he's hiding in like, we're in there like giving a dog a bite in like the garden section. The manager of like the short pump Walmart did not like us that day. Get permission before you do that.
Right.
But anyway, so that is the hard surface Jacobson gland method.
I love it.
Probably my favorite at the time, but again, it changes honestly. The next, like Gonzo, my current dog, for whatever reason, he was great on the hard surface, but once he got to grass, it was almost overwhelming for the dog.
Okay.
And I noticed that on anything but hard surface, he was awesome on hard surface, but because he'd never had ground disturbance odor, because as you run across a paved parking lot.
Right, that's not ground disturbance.
Not a whole lot of ground disturbance. I mean, there might be something crushing there, but not a whole lot to off gas.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to teach him that crushed vegetation was meaningful.
So did you have to go back to the very beginning, like I was just describing how we did it when you went on the grass?
I did essentially the same thing, but I made a box and I flattened the entire box, sprinkled food in it, right? So he's learning crushed vegetation has a reward.
Right.
And then I started tracking out of the box, if that makes sense. So step, food, big pile of food at the end. Mm-hmm. And I did it that way. Let me see. What else did we do? We did, I told you about, I have a guy that's worked out that morning in real sweaty clothing, and he ties it off to a leash and then walks off dragging the shirt on the ground as well, or cheesecloth, you heard about like that, and like meat, hot dog juice. Yeah, it's endless ways. There's endless ways.
I remember you came back from a seminar or something one time, and the had putting socks up under your balls, and then you would let the smack the dog in the face and let him bite the sock, and and get all of the I guess you would call them pheromones or hormones,
whatever it is,
and just get the dog super excited.
There's 100. I mean, there's a zillion different ways. I mean, I used to old school sports style of kick a step, drop hot dog in it, so the dog would go step to step because it's a point system. In the sport world,
we need to get somebody from that world in here.
Yeah. I was just, matter of fact, I was just training with this week Michael Lorraine.
Okay.
I shouldn't say
shout out Michael Lorraine.
Yeah,
I have never.
Never met him.
Unfortunately, I haven't met him, or I'm not aware.
I shouldn't say I was training with him. Okay, that makes it think that I was telling him something, right? Obviously, I was learning from him, but he's got the world titles and shit and everything else, but badass. But he was telling me that he brought out one of his dogs, all of his dogs. He had 4 there, and he was like, I was asking him about tracking or whatever. And, how's the dog so good? When I was doing sports stuff, we're doing this and that. And he was like, you got to think, I haven't fed a dog in 30 years in a bowl, right? Everything they work for food. So I got to lay this dog a track now for it to eat, right? That's the control. Yeah. Brilliant.
I mean, come on. That's next level.
Brilliant, but also time consuming, right? Clearly, that's a civilian that loves what he does for a living, right?
Right.
And that's
maybe
really
we should apply more of that.
Let's also, I was thinking about this the other day, that's also the downside to law enforcement, because although you and I can easily, and everyone that's a cop, that's a canine handler that's going to come on this show, they're all going to say, I always wanted to be in canine, right?
Right.
And that may be true, right? But that's okay. Most people like never even thought about it until the vacancy came open, or they're like, "Oh, that seems like a cool job, gets me off the road." Right. So what I'm saying is,
I want to be in K9 because they don't do anything.
yeah, exactly, something, or they get to wear the outer vest, or different uniforms, or unmarked cars, or whatever it is, right?
Cool.
But for the most part, it's like a cop, right? And they're pretty stoic, and then they get transferred to this position. And they may have had like a personal pet, but that's about it.
Right.
So then they have to learn how to be a canine handler over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or whatever their career is. Opposed to like a civilian, like a Michael Lorraine, he's doing it because he wants to do it.
Loves it.
Yes.
He loves it.
So he brings the knowledge. He doesn't get there and then learn from like a older handler who's going out,
kind of like Caesar, he develops his own training style from personal real world experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and
amazing.
Most of them, almost all of them are obviously pet and dog trainers too. So they're coming in contact, and there's like a revolving door of training dogs. They're going to see much more. I was saying this earlier, like with my board and train,
right?
I do about 40, 50 dogs a year. The average canine handler has 2, maybe 3 dogs that they're there for a long time, maybe 4 dogs total, right? So
that's kind of unique.
Yeah, and you look at a whole unit, these guys are getting maybe training 1 or 2 dogs over a 20-year span, right? I'm training 40 a year, right? Because of that, and it may not necessarily be in tracking, it may not necessarily be in bite work, but it's a different breed, different age, different temperament. You're putting your hands on so many dogs and learning so much that I bring way more from the pet sector into law enforcement than I'm ever going to take from law enforcement into the pet sector.
And that's a blessing, actually, for you and for the unit to be able to hack into that knowledge base, right?
Well, it's for sales, not for free.
But you get an opportunity to pass that what you're learning to the younger guys in the unit who eventually they're going to be the old guy, right?
Yeah, and
they're going to be the trainer.
Yeah, and you got to keep getting out. I think me and the other guy Ronnie from Florida was there talking about how that some people, trainers, law enforcement trainers, try to keep their guys from seeking training, right? And there were a couple of guys from Maryland there, and they were allowed to come as an audit, but not bring their dogs and video record what was going on, and then take that back to their trainer to see whether that's something they want to implement. If you're doing that, right? If you're trying to pretend like you still know everything by keeping everyone sheltered and not allowed to go seek training, you are the problem, right?
That drives me nuts.
I sent this training I went to. I told every one of my retraining regional group that I have, send it to all of them. Right, because of money and logistics, some couldn't go, right, but some could. And I'm always like, y'all need to go to this seminar, go to this one, talk to this person. Let's go see what so and so thinks. Get outside and get all these opinions and training, because you always learn. I even told Garrett this last training, and another guy that was there from I think Gloucester, and he was asking me what I thought about the techniques and stuff they're using, and I said, I go to every training because you always learn one of 3 things. You either learn something new, right, which I did, with going over the power gripping and the bark fence and everything. I'd seen it, but hadn't seen it from the guy who started it. Michael Lorraine is credited for bringing that to America.
Okay.
So I wanted to see the guy who brought it here, not the 4th generation that someone else has dumbed down.
Right.
So you either learn something new, you learn that that's not the way to do it, or you learn that you're already doing everything right? So, but you always learn something, right? I think I said this before, I've been to 40, I think, casual canine classes at this point. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot new getting put out there, but I'm learning, hey, I'm still doing a chest seal the right way, or wrapping a tourniquet on a dog's leg this way, I never turn down training.
I've always felt the same way. You know, any opportunity you got to go to a new environment and pick up something, because you are going to learn something, either what to do or what not to do.
Right.
And I've been exposed to situations where I see something and I'm thinking to myself, I am not doing that.
See something, say something.
Right. Like, we talked about Brutus, my Rottweiler. Knucklehead. I mean, complete knucklehead. I try to say this the most politically correct way.
You don't have to.
So we were doing a building search with him one time, and it was a high find, meaning the decoy was hiding up, elevated,
Not accessible.
right, unaccessible, and then they would lower down a bite sleeve.
Oh my God.
And I got to the end, and I did not know they were going to do that
Yeah.
at the time. And I refused
Good.
to allow him to grab that sleeve. I didn't want him to acknowledge that sleeve, because what is that doing? It's teaching the dog to go for the equipment, right? Not the human.
How to make your dog fail on the street 101. But you still see a lot of that going on. Like,
Right.
I tell you what. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But again, it was just an example of me learning what I don't want
Right.
to happen,
Yeah.
or what kind of training I do not want to expose my dog to, so that he will engage
Right.
a real life suspect if need be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I got like a rule after school, and usually the last month is pretty much street proofing anyway. But the after school, I don't really want a dog to see you can see one. You can use it as like distraction. I'm not a big fan of a dog biting a bite suit or any kind of visible equipment.
Right.
Pretty much ever again. I mean, everything needs to be fire hose wrap.
I love that.
Gorilla tape. Muzzle, prosthetic done correctly.
Yes.
It's got to resemble. Now we'll use suits as like the scarecrows as distractions, or make them go through them, or that kind of thing. But you travel around and someone's like, "Let's do bite work." We got the bite suit out, and I'm like, "Are we problem solving and out?" Or because I'm pretty sure bad guys don't wear bite suits. So.
Bad guys don't wear bite suits.
It's on a shirt. I saw the one I wore with Park, but we didn't turn around and show it. But yeah,
Bad guys.
the episode that didn't air.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Technical
So
difficulties.
did
folks.
you teach all 4 of your dogs to track that method? The triangle, grass?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we started with all.
Well, Mako is probably one of the best tracking dogs I ever saw. So
all right, so look, let's go back. Mako was different.
Okay.
I bought him myself when he was 8 weeks old. So I purchased him when he was a baby from the breeder. So I knew everything that dog had been exposed to his entire life. And that's why I feel like he developed the way he
Sure.
did.
Yeah.
He did some amazing things that I had never seen other dogs do. And, well, he was exposed to tracking at 11
Right.
weeks.
Yeah. I remember him like as a puppy tracking.
Just a baby, just a baby.
Yeah.
Tracking, there's actually YouTube videos out there
Yeah.
of him at 11 weeks tracking.
Yeah. Because I remember we did the same thing with Linda's dog. Because I got pictures of Z at like 9 weeks old doing hard surface tracks and like the best building parking lot, and going through like Walmart to like 2 months old. Crazy. But that's the luxury of having as a puppy. The downside is you got to wait, depending on, is he going to be a police dog? Is it for fun? As a sport dog?
Exactly. I did not, initially, my intent was to train him up,
Sell him.
and sell him.
Right.
It's kind of a learning experience for myself.
Yeah.
Because up until then, I had never. Are you aware of anybody else that's done that?
Just their own dog?
For working police dog?
Yeah, there's a few.
Okay.
Yeah, I at the time you did it, no.
Okay.
But I've heard other people.
people.
Now it's pretty. And I don't know, because once you get outside of like this area, obviously, us where we're at, like the Central Virginia area, for the most part, the dogs are purchased by law enforcement and they belong to the department. Right. So I've met a lot of people in just different jurisdictions where they own the dog. Right. And they're, I shouldn't say job shopping by no means, but they're transferring to different departments and they're taking their dog with them because they own the dog.
Okay.
And that's
kind of like a free agent.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it seems to be pretty popular.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. That's wild.
And and that's kind of almost like a selling point to a new agency. I'm bringing my dog with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had to actually donate Mako.
Right. I remember that.
To the county.
Right. In order to work it. Yeah.
In order to work it.
They weren't going to purchase it from you. Like, hey, if you want. And of course, you had this like badass, like 9-month-old dog. You could have went and sold her for like $10,000, but instead you decided to work it yourself. But you were up for a dog. The old one was getting retired.
Right.
So it worked out fine other than losing a financial investment.
Yeah.
But it's well worth it in the long run.
Oh my gosh.
When that dog bit so many people and found so many people.
He did so many good, really amazing things. And, he didn't have any environmental issues either. Because he started off as a pet.
Because you tiled his kennel.
That was the worst. But he was exposed to in the house and stairs and dark rooms. Yeah. And the first probably 6 weeks of his life, he was in the house with us. The wife wanted him out fast because he was...
terrorizing.
He was a working dog.
Yeah.
A working puppy. Can you even imagine what that's like living with? Oh my gosh. I didn't see that dog sleep until he was like 10 years old.
That's how I was with Macho. I've never walked up on him. That's like how I knew when he was close to the end.
Right, when you caught him sleeping.
I got all the way to his kennel one day and he was still laying down. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and he lived like 3 months after that point. I knew the end was near.
Oh, it's
when I could actually get close to his kennel and him not pop up.
Right, that's heartbreaking when you can do that.
Yeah.
But they put in good work and they earned it. They earned the time off, time to relax a little bit, even though they don't want to.
Yeah,
they don't know that they don't want to, but yeah. So yeah, I was blessed with having Mako and being able to start him that way. Honestly, had I been exposed to other methods, I would have done hard surface tracking with him when he was still a baby. I think that would have been a great reward. But
yeah, it's hard to say whether the only thing I can think of is because most people start in a field with zero distractions and build up.
Right.
Opposed to, like Michael Lorraine was using the bark fence, flood it. We flood first, right? Do all that first, don't worry about it. So by the time they get to a different surface or a less distracted area, but there's nothing busier than like
Walmart.
A Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart. I mean, come on.
And like I said, we could literally lay a track in between cars over the cart return thing and go into the garden section, out the back of the store, into a Home Depot. We've done that, several times. But it's cool,
if you think about it, you're in a Walmart parking lot is about the most perfect environment to start them. Because not only do you have the other people, all the vehicles, the tractor trailers that are going through there, that's just dispersing all kinds of odor everywhere, right?
Yep.
And if you can get them to focus from the very beginning,
right, on
a particular, we're following this person,
right?
That to me is amazing.
Yeah. Shout out Walmart for allowing us to come.
Golly, Walmart, Sam Walton, we love you.
Who thought Walmart would ever be a sponsor of this show? It's crazy.
Well, they're giving us millions of dollars to
either that or they're banning us from ever running tracking in their parking lots again. There's so many Walmarts, they'll never figure out which one we're at next. Yeah. You could always go to Home Depot or Lowe's.
We could use it too.
I
Or
like
mall.
I like those because we'll go to the and because there's, like the lumber doors at Lowe's or Home Depot because they're so large and the
Yes.
aisles are wide that you can go literally right through. And I've never had anyone if I go through a Home Depot lumber section,
Right.
which a little tidbit. I used to work there in college.
Ah,
That was one of my first jobs, Home Depot,
Nice.
in the lumber department.
Home Depot.
Yeah, exactly. But you could go right through the lumber aisle and out those back doors where they're bringing it. No one's ever told me no or anything, right? And I've gone in and ran schools and we tracked through them. Maybe one person might be like, hey, what are you doing? But people are shopping, picking out wood. They don't give a shit.
They don't care.
No.
Nobody cares.
No. And then we'll go out back and hear someone yelling because they got like tracked to like a hidden sleeve or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What the hell is going on?" We got no markings on whatsoever.
Whoopsie.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. You know what's interesting? You just got me to thinking. In all my years, I've only had on 2 occasions where somebody actually was not happy with us being there.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, do tell. And name exactly where that was at, so all of our followers can send them hate mail.
I'm not going to use exact names, but one was a very secure banking facility,
Okay.
right? And they did not want us on their property, which I thought was interesting because a banking facility. And it was a training day with all of us, the whole group.
Is this the one that you don't think is really a bank?
Similar.
Okay.
It's very near our central.
Yeah.
Right across
Yeah.
from our central.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Back before they had put up that fence.
Yeah.
That does not look like a normal fence.
They also got a full-time civilian bomb dogs there too. Everything gets ran by a bomb. I stopped by and talked to them the other
Can't
day.
imagine why a banking facility that's just handling
Financial stuff.
financial stuff online where they're not even holding like money.
A lot of security there. All right, where's the other? Well,
Security.
and where else?
Another one. It was I guess it was kind of like an office park, and we were tracking behind this building, and I made a found a Kong, and one of the big wigs from that company saw us and came out there and said, "You're not allowed to be out here without permission." Well, there was one of the trainers that day. He just threw up his hands and just walked off.
The trainer or the guy that?
The trainer
Okay.
that was with me, because he was upset that here we are, the police, providing free security for your building
Right.
with police dogs.
Right.
And he was, I guess he was frustrated. The trainer was frustrated that somebody would actually complain about us
Yeah.
being there to help them. And
Some people they're breathing, they're complaining. You know what I mean?
it just so happens we were in our jurisdiction
Yeah.
at that time. And I recognized, hey, this could be a problem.
Yeah.
So I put my dog up and I went back and knocked on the window and got the guy's attention. He came back out and I talked to him and we ironed it out. And he said, I'm really, really glad that you came back and spoke to me because I was looking up the phone number for the chief. I was like, oh, gosh. No, sir, we're here for you.
Yeah. You're welcome for the free security, by
Yeah.
the way. Yeah.
We're here for you. And that, I guess it's kind of difficult for some people to recognize that the police are the good guys. We are the good guys.
Most of them. Yeah.
Most of them. Most of us are the good guys. And for somebody to complain about us being somewhere, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah. If you don't want free security, man, well, whatever. You know where else they don't like him?
Talk to me.
Power companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to have one of those similar conversations with, outside of a secure facility. What are y'all doing out here? Oh, just tracking. You get permission from so-and-so.
Right.
I'm like, and you can't really say, hey, you're welcome for the free security because they don't need it there.
Right.
They got more equipment.
Yeah.
And more tactical
Yeah.
operators inside that one building I'm referring to than
Yeah.
any police department.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, my bad. I'll ask next time.
Yeah,
but they were fine. But it's more like,
Hey,
let us know because you
future-
almost got shot.
Yeah, we
essentially.
almost killed all of them.
Yeah. Like apparently, like if you get near that fence, they can murk you out there. Like legit. There's some kind of like standard order. I don't know, but yeah. So ran off from tracking, the different methods, and there's more. We have to get some search and rescue people on here and see how.
Let's say, all right.
How it
My
varies.
experience with them. I'll give you an example. We were called for a missing old lady and with dementia. And they said, well, she's 90 years old and she's barefoot and she moves very slowly and she can barely walk. And I went out and ran track, and I went for a long way. And it was to the point where, and it was my fault that I stopped because I listened to them instead of trusting the dog. How many times have we told them, trust your dog?
Yeah.
And I was as guilty as anybody. It's like, there's no way this 90-year-old lady could go this far through this environment.
They move, brother. They move.
So we got a bloodhound.
Yeah.
Bloodhound came out and he was doing the same thing. And he did the exact same thing I did. He stopped because there's like, oh, there's no way. Well, then we ended up calling out search and rescue people. And that was my actually first time dealing with search and rescue folk. And they were searching with the dogs off lead, just letting them just go,
Right.
do their thing. They're just going all over the place. And it just so happened we were probably about 30, 40 minutes in with the search and rescue people when we got notified on the radio that a construction worker was hailed down by a little old lady. She was about 4 or 5 miles away through the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
And she was at a fence off the interstate. This guy's like, what in the world? And sure enough, going the exact direction where my dog was headed, and I stopped him.
Yeah.
So the search and rescue people were heading in the same direction that we all went, and it was enlightening.
Yeah.
I
found an Alzheimer's patient one time, a long time ago, but depending on where you work, it dictates what you can and can't use a dog to track for.
Right.
And I've always had it's got to be life or death for it to be a non-crime issue, right? So if it's like a missing child and it's 20 degrees out and they get free, right? So as long as the exposure or them being the elements could kill them outweighs a dog bite.
Right.
Because I've had several tracks where my dog bit someone. I never knew they were there, like a lot of times, right? So I'm very cautious about using it for a missing person,
Right.
elder, that kind of thing. So, but I tracked this Alzheimer's patient one time. And it was one of those deals. It was like 10 degrees out, and they're like, they're going to die if we don't find them. And when Macho, my last dog, when he found him, the guy was probably not that far, probably like half a mile into the woods behind his house. So it was all non-contaminated, pretty easy track to run, quite frankly. And when we found him, the guy was like a 90-year-old man. He was facing away from me, and he had came across a big old oak tree, and he could not figure out how to get around it. And he was marching in place.
Wow.
It was like dusk. It's like 7 o'clock, and I come up on this guy, and we're in the middle of like a swamp woods, and he's just marching in place. It was the weirdest thing ever. I'm like yelling, "Hey man, you okay?" And no acknowledgement whatsoever.
Right.
And he could not figure out how to get around the tree.
Thank goodness that tree stopped.
How bad the Alzheimer's was, yeah. And they literally, like, no shit. I keep the dog away from him so it doesn't get bit, obviously. The officer with me walks up, and the guy still is not even acknowledging us. Turn him around and just watch him
just walks
like
right
a
back.
robot. It was the craziest shit ever.
That is wild.
Wow. And we're in the middle of the woods, and he's just sitting there, just literally marching in place
That
and
is wild.
talking to himself. And they just like kind of grabbed him by the shoulders and turned him around and brought him on back home.
Dude.
But he would have sat there and did it till he died easily.
Yeah.
You know, and without a dog, you never find that guy.
One of my examples of something similar to that, I was called, I want to say it was Caroline County. They had a situation where they arrested the parents of these people, and they lived in the woods in Caroline. The house that they were all living in didn't even have electricity, and they had 5 kids. And they called me to Caroline County to look for the kids. Well, I was still fairly new, and I had Brutus the Rottweiler, the knucklehead. He was an extremely violent animal. And I get up there, and they're saying, hey, we got to find these kids. It was like 20-some degrees. It was cold. It was freezing. And the kids ran off into the woods, you know, when they saw the parents getting arrested. And they said that, you know, this is one of those life or death situations. And I was like, oh, my gosh, it's on me.
Yeah.
Here I am, a fairly brand new handler.
How many kids ran off?
5.
All of them ran off?
All of them. You know, it was like from like 13 to like 4.
God.
You know, and they were gonna die.
Yeah.
They were gonna die in the woods. And I get on scene. And I'm looking around, and I tell whoever's in charge. I said, "Look here, I'm gonna put the muzzle on this dog." The first time I ever tried to track with a muzzle.
Oh my God! In the real world, that's not the time you want to try something new.
No. But the situation was that dire because had Brutus grabbed a 4-year-old,
Yeah, and killed
he
it.
could have killed him before I could have gotten to stop him. Right, even on the tracking lead. That to me was that was one of my most terrifying moments, and I've been involved in some stuff, but that one scared me more than about anything. The thought of him killing a 4-year-old was just oof.
That you've been called to find.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm running through the woods yelling out, "Hey,
Yeah.
please, come on out.
please tell me you're there. Say something.
Please, I don't want him to accidentally." You know, every tree that we go by, I'm just scared to death that he's gonna grab somebody and kill him.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, there's people here watching this like, oh, you should be able to tell when a dog's close.
No.
If you're you take the wind in account, you know what I mean? And what's your favorite tracking leash length? Not the make of it, but the length of it.
So we started off with the 15 foot, right? Normally, after about 6 months, I would get so many knots in the lead. Around 8 or 9 feet was my happy place. What about you?
Probably the same. I mean, I know there's either 30 or 50 foot people let them way out there and kind of trail, or there's I know a lot of departments that track on a 6-foot leash.
Oh,
Yeah, they swear by it, and they're usually like urban. I know with the dog's real close to them.
Okay.
But I mean, I kind of feel like it's hard to get a negative on a 6-foot leash, but it's pretty popular. Like in Tidewater, I see a lot of those guys do that. But yeah, I use a 15, but I'm usually around, depending. Sometimes I let it out, sometimes I suck it in, but for the most part, I'm probably using half of it. So I'm probably at like the 8 feet, happy medium, but it just depends on the terrain, obviously. But and we've tried. Some guys swear by that climbing rope because it doesn't.
I was about to ask you about that.
I mean, I'm not a fan of it, man.
Okay.
I don't know. It burns your hands too much, and everyone's like, well, it goes around trees, and I'm like, if your leash is getting wrapped up around trees, there's a whole other problem, you know what I mean? Because I just use old school cheap nylon. Really, I'm not a fan of the biothane stuff. It's so slippery, especially when wet. Leather, can't afford it.
No.
And just heavy crap. Just a simple nylon 15-footer. I do cut the end of it off always though. I had several where I sent a dog after a guy one time, and that loop at the end got
Right.
caught under a door jam because I couldn't get the dog off leash and fast enough. And so after that, I cut them all off. So I take a 15-footer and cut off that handle on the end.
Okay.
It works perfect. And the best part is it rolls up in your pocket very easy in your cargo.
There you go.
And that same like 30, 15-foot lead in my cargo pocket saved my life when Mako bit me that time. So I always keep a leash in my pocket. Whether I'm tracking or decoying.
He could have killed you. Just
Yeah, a little skinny
out your-
femur.
femoral artery and just bled out
Yeah.
before we could even. I don't think we even had tourniquets back then, did we? We didn't carry tourniquets.
No, those weren't even issued.
We'd have had to use a belt.
Yeah.
And I guess I was trained.
I've had to use a belt to choke out a dog one time. I had no leash on it. No collar, I mean.
Right.
Right, so there's no slip chain, no flat collar, no nothing. And I couldn't get a hold of it, so I took my belt off to use it as to get a hold of it. It was like a loose dog on a call for service.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Pit bull coming after me, and I was like, we got to wrangle this thing somehow.
That just reminded me. You just made me remember a call for service. Little old lady is not involving tracking. This little old lady, she was out walking her Yorkshire pudding dog or whatever the thing was, and a pit bull. This is the lakeside area. You know, your old stomping grounds.
Yeah,
You know,
I used to live there.
This poor old lady, she's walking her dog, and a random pit bull comes in. And this is nothing against pit bulls, because I love pit bulls.
They're awesome,
They're
yeah.
sweet as they can be.
Easiest dogs to train in the world, too.
I can only imagine. I've never really tried to train one,
Yeah.
but I love them. But this one particular dog saw this little Yorkie, and he ran up and grabbed the Yorkie, and the little old lady tried to stop the pit bull, and he ended up knocking her down and breaking her leg, and he took the Yorkie and ran off and killed it.
Shit.
And I was like, oh man. And I was close by, so I went and was helping out, and we found the pit bull. The pit bull just went back home after he killed that Yorkie.
Yeah.
And the animal control was there, and I don't remember exactly who, but this pit bull, he was sweet as he could be.
Yeah,
He really was.
Yeah.
I went in the backyard. I had a sleeve with me just in case he tried to bite me. And no, that dog didn't want to part to
yeah.
anybody. We just grabbed him and
Dude, they're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I do love a good pit bull.
Yeah, that reminds me of that. So Macho is very dog. Well, both. I know what it is. I pick dog aggressive dogs for whatever reason. But as long as they don't leave work, none of them will leave a track or leave. I say they'll
Right.
leave a track, but the story I'm getting ready to say is I used to always get there for a building search,
Right.
And whether it's the key holder or business owner or owner of the house is there, and you always say, is anyone supposed to be in here, right?
Right.
And so my first couple of years, I get there and be like, so no brother, sister, no one should be in this house whatsoever.
Right,
No, I
right.
live alone, my ex-husband's dead, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Send the dog in there all day long, right? This is, back when we could.
Give your warnings.
Give him a warning, send the dog in there, and several times. It only took about 2 or 3, to tell you the truth. I learned. But he would come back with a cat or the family pet in its mouth, and I'm like, oh, shit. So then I started adding that to are there any pets in the house?
Right.
I was like, anything living in this house, this dog's going to kill, right? Because if they don't find the human, the next best thing is your rabbit or your prize Siamese.
Right.
And the county gets tired of writing checks for animals after some point, right? So now I have this checklist, and what we used to be able to do building searches for just dwindled down. They're almost rare.
Really?
I would say, man, I was doing building searches almost nightly back in the day when we had.
Oh yeah.
Nightly,
You found open door.
all the time. Now we get one a month, and it's got to make sure it's no one in there. The last one I did was a church, and there was 2 schools in session during a time frame, but they thought someone was actually hiding it at the same time.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, there's 48 kids in this school.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
No, not doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, we actually did, but we evacuated all the people out.
Okay.
And then I let it air out for a
Right,
while.
right.
But Yeah, but no, you don't get many anymore.
Did you do that online? No, so you cut them loose.
I'm not a fan. And again, this is personal preference.
Right.
Like I think Jason, who's like in my unit, does almost all build and searches on lead.
Okay.
And then I've probably done like 3 on lead build and searches in my entire career.
trying to think.
I cut them loose because
don't
of course I have the control, so they get out of sight, bring them back,
Right.
and then the thing to me is if you're clearing a building, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be right behind that dog. It's not a tactical advantage at that point, right?
Correct.
So it can't really reach into these. And if you you can't verify whether you can send the dog and there'd be something, then you shouldn't use it at all.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'd love to hear from people to see what they do. But personally, I don't really use a leash almost ever.
Okay.
Honestly, I rarely use a leash. I use it now for tracking still, but this current dog, I'll probably in the next year. He's still young. I'll probably be off leash tracking here pretty soon. I'm not a leash fan. Not a leash fan.
Off leash tracking is amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Just not a fan of
It's
leashes.
amazing.
They just get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can do it.
Yeah.
But you also have to have that level of control to be able to do that, to make sure it doesn't just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, hell, if the dog won't come to you
Right.
in normal sense, you certainly can't track through neighborhoods with
Yeah,
off leash. But
If you're going through the woods and all of a sudden a deer pops up,
yeah,
the dog is gone.
right.
It's like, whoa. You you can't do that.
That's like when the Bloodhound got lost on that 895 track that time.
gosh.
Yeah, I remember that. It was so funny because I ran the first track, couldn't find the guy.
Right.
And then the next, whoever patrol dog got there, they ran a track. It was like those murder suspects. And then
I think it was me.
it might have been.
think
Yeah,
it
because
was
you were
you
there.
and I.
Probably too. Yeah.
In
But then like
Lanham.
Richmond came. There's a lot of departments came there
That's right.
eventually. But
That's right.
like we took like 3 or 4 or 5 different tracks. But then Lanham went, and then he had that carabiner clasp, and for what it just fell right. And he went to go give his dog like a little pop, like, let's get to work. And then the leash just came, and there was no dog. And the worst part about it was, so that helicopter was above us, and I had just got done saying, get that helicopter out of here, dude. All that does, the same thing happened in the culvert bite with Macho. Like they had that helicopter.
Yes.
Dude, when those things are so low, all they do is blow odor around. Get
Right.
that thing out of here.
Right.
I don't need it. But so I just got done saying, hey, get rid of the helo, right? So literally a minute ago. And like the captain on scene was all like, oh, okay, y'all don't need it. And then I was like, hey, we need that helo back. He's like, you just told me to. I was like, no, now I needed to search for a dog.
Yeah.
We've lost our bloodhound.
We lost the bloodhound. Oh my gosh. Poor Lanham.
Thank God Macho found that guy and bit him.
Yes.
Because
The folks out there, y'all not familiar with this particular situation, but basically it was a vehicle pursuit from a county east of us.
there you go.
And I think the guy, they like kidnapped
Yeah, those are,
some old people.
they raped
and,
the old lady. You know.
and took
Robbery.
$100,000
Yeah.
out of the personal safe or
Yeah.
something.
Craziness.
They were just bad dudes.
Bad dude, yeah.
Or a bad guy, one in particular. And that night, you and I, we had run our dogs, I know I ran my dog at least 3 times. And the county and everybody wanted to shut everything down. They're done for the night.
They did.
Yeah, they already shut it down.
They shut it down, yeah.
And it just so happened you and I were out. I had just finished. At that point, we weren't tracking. We were doing area searches, right?
Yeah.
So for the folks out there, an area search is, all right, you've got this section of land or woods or whatever, and you're gonna just kind of clear that area to make sure that there's nobody in there.
Right.
And when they shut it all down, you and I had just finished my dog, and Macho was fresh.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been resting for about an hour or two, and the SWAT guys were there, and they're like, "I don't want to stop."
Yeah.
And I looked at you. I said, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
Because there was one area that we had not checked.
I was like, no one's gone over
Nobody
here yet.
has checked that area. So
Well, we took him over there for an area search, and then he starts tracking. Oh. And then I was like, dude, we're on it. We're on somebody.
Yes.
We're on somebody.
Oh my gosh, that was.
There's a human over here somewhere, right? And we're tracking, and then so we're losing all the SWAT guys. So I down them, and this is one of my best lines. So we're waiting for all the SWAT guys to get up with us.
Because they were going slow. They were checking culvert pipes.
Yeah. And then
They're doing their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were great.
Yeah, I'll never complain about having one of those guys ever. And Dave looks at Macho and says, "If you find this guy, I will buy you a hamburger." Two hamburgers.
Two hamburgers. Yeah. And folks, my right hand up. As soon as I said that, Macho stood up, spun around twice, and took off.
Dude, 60 seconds later, we're biting that guy. Yeah.
And the SWAT guys were chasing you. And I was like, y'all need to get back.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Yeah.
So,
he tried, and he makes a 90-degree right turn and goes up this hill towards the interstate, and then just before we even tags this guy right in the head,
yes.
bit him right in the head. His tooth is stuck in his skull. And I pop his tooth out, and he comes and he hits the guy in his hand, and then the SWAT guys pulled his hands apart.
Yep.
And when they did, that's when he pulled his hands apart. We thought he had a gun inside of his hoodie. His hands clasped like this. And they pulled him apart and just filleted his fingers, and then they hit one of the SWAT guys.
Macho bit the SWAT guy because the SWAT guy jumped in there.
And then I get him off of him. He turns and hits me on the arm.
He locks in on you.
Dude, he was biting everything that night. He's like, we've been out here way too long.
You had your remote, and you were trying to get him off of you, and you throw the remote to me.
Yeah, that was funny.
I had to zap him to get him off.
The best part was like I drag him away from everybody. I'm like looking at him like this. I'm like, it's me. He didn't care.
The blood
was
just pouring out
everywhere,
of his mouth.
everywhere.
I was like, this looks like something out of a horror movie.
Did. Yeah,
it was amazing.
We finally get him under control, and the guy in custody. And then the deputy that was chasing this guy to begin with, that was working the case, and he came over and he was like, hey man, you think I can take a picture with that dog?
I was like, no, not right now.
I was like, bro, I don't even want to get near that dog right now.
It's my dog. You see that blood? That's me. That's my blood.
I'm sitting there looking at him. I was like, probably not right now, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have a harder time just getting him back to the car.
Oh my gosh,
he was lighting everybody up.
I think we should end it there.
Yeah, that was good. That ends a good track though.
That was an amazing track. Everybody was happy. I remember our sergeant. She called me and said, "Please tell me Mako bit that dude." I said, "No, that was Macho." They were like the Wonder Twins back in the day.
But he was dead.
He definitely got him.
Yeah.
Another good show.
Another good show.
Here we go.
AI, baby. AI.
I love it.
Police sirens wail, city streets awake, running from the shadows, dodging every stake. Cities pack a